A warm welcome to all of you to this roundtable on the art and science of developing leaders presented by BIMTECH in association with the National HRD Network and our knowledge partner, Aon Hewitt. I am Manashi Chaudhary, Associate Professor with BIMTECH, and I'm your anchor for this evening. On behalf of the organizers, we would like to thank each one of you for the overwhelming response we received for this evening event. We would also like to thank NDTV Profit for coming on board with us as our TV partner for this event. We bring to you this session on the theme, Leading Change, What Transformation Means, where we aim to share research from Aon Hewitt and insights from our experienced business leaders. When change knocks, you need to answer the door. Invite it into your life and anticipate positive results from its arrival. Helping your employees understand that change can often bring unexpected benefits, can help them think more positively about it in the future, and make this their self-fulfilling prophecy. I would now invite Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director, Birla Institute of Management Technology, to please deliver the welcome note.
Good evening. It is a matter of great pleasure that in this HR Roundtable presented by BIMTECH in association with the National HRD Network, Aon Hewitt and NDTV Profit, we have amidst us some of the leading thought leaders from the Indian business and academia who have been actively engaged in nurturing and developing leaders. Their views and experiences in today's HR Roundtable will be extremely relevant since they represent a wide spectrum of leadership in diverse areas. On behalf of BIMTECH, I have great pleasure in welcoming the distinguished panelists in the HR Roundtable and all those stalwarts of the industry who are part of today's deliberations. They are known in the industry for their dedicated practices. I welcome them as distinguished speakers in the roundtable and request you to welcome them with a big applause. Friends, in today's HR Roundtable, we are going to discuss what transformation means and how leaders steer this humongous change in various organizations. The topic is relevant for all stakeholders of business, including society, and particularly those who are responsible for leadership development. The leaders need to understand how organizations actually change. Organizations require direction in order to change and adapt through informal social networks as much as through formal structures. Change in organizations can be designed as per our imagination, but it can also emerge out of a situation. I look forward to knowing the views of our distinguished panelists assembled here. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. H. Chaturvedi with more than 35 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. As a former director with AICTE, he has been associated with the formulation of policies, planning, regulation, and control of management education, as well as other disciplines under technical education. Now, may I please request Ms. Radhika Gopalkrishnan to join me on stage for our keynote session. Over to you, Radhika.
Thank you. To set the ball going, thanks, Dr. Chaturvedi, because I think what he has done very, very powerfully is that we are no longer going to be debating about the need for change. Those of us who still want to debate, I think unknowingly, we've already become participants in the process of change. So whether it was a naturalist like Darwin, who long ago saw us as the evolution of the species, saying that it's not the smartest that survive, but it's the most adaptive to change, whether it is one of the most written about, talked about, famous business leaders like Jack Welch, who said, when the rate of external change exceeds the rate of internal change, the end of our business is in sight. Or whether it is a futurist who we have all read about and followed so much, like Alvin Toffler, who says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So since from the apes' time we've come to the 21st century and we are all have our favorite gadget which we cannot leave home without, I'll take you to the present day context and give you a very, very small analysis of what change or not being able to proactively lead can do to your favorite toy. So let me take the mobile industry and just give you a very, very brief illustration of 2007 to 2012, how a leading player with 38% of market share actually got halved to 19 in the course of just 5 years. So what is happening today is that we don't have centuries and eons and centuries to work towards change. So it's no longer going to be the Darwinian adapting to change as much as it's going to be about how can we actively lead and anticipate and make the change happen. Because as this figure very, very evocatively shows, that the market dynamics and the entire industry can transform in a matter of 2-3 years. So the telegraph system may be shut after so many years, but Orkut and Facebook within 2 years were actually, when Orkut began, within 2 years Facebook overtook it, and it took, to get its first 50 million, it was less than 2 years. So what is it really as? And this is a topic we're all passionate about. We've all stepped out on a Friday evening and we've said, let's really understand what is this change and transformation all about. And if you really look at it, and as we've all said before, that transformation is not a destination. If there is one learning, one takeaway that you have to leave with today, then that is it, that it is not about that we've reached and this is the goalpost and this is what transformation means. As we continue engaging with a lot of clients and we work with leaders across the industry, what we see is that it is an ongoing process. It is the willingness to constantly reinvent yourselves and look at how much more contemporary and current we are today than we were yesterday. It is a lot about making those behavioral changes. It is not something that somebody else does and they need to, or it will happen elsewhere. It is about what have I actually changed and what can I work towards. In a way, it is risk management, because it is about how contemporary you can stay and what is, whether it's the business, it's the market, or whether it is a personal life, it is about how much have we continued contributing or bringing value to the table. The behavior changes are critical, and it is the levers of change which will actually enable. So at every level, and as we saw, two of the most critical levers are very much in this room, which is leadership, and the second is communication. And a lot of our research says that for something to be called effective communication, it becomes effective when it is said the 10th time. But it is for us to really actively look at how have we changed ourselves. So again, when was the last time we did something for the first time? And how do we actively communicate, or we think it will be some magic and people will see the change and tell us. So thank you, and I'll now hand over to the eminent panelists.
Thank you, Radhika. We are really fortunate to have this panel here. We have 5 chief executive officers and, of course, director, but with cumulative experience of 180 years. So really fortunate to have you all here, and thanks for making this time. We have 5 different industries which are represented here. We have IT, we have infrastructure, we have education, oil and gas, auto, so very diverse. So we're sure we're going to get a lot of different aspects of change and transformation we're going to learn. So my first question, Preeti, to you to start with, is why is change such an important issue in today's organizations?
I don't think it is about today. It was always a need. Because I'd like to bring one data to the table. 70% of the companies, Fortune 1000 companies, that were there in early 1900s died by the time it was 1970. And it was simply because there was no change. So I don't think it's an issue of today. It's always been the issue. There are two parts to change, in my opinion. One is when you are in a situation of either an inflection point where either you're in a state of risk or you're in a state of aspiration. One of the two. There's no other reason for change. So that is what happens. It's a question of realization. So that is generally taken as a project. And it's taken over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So that's what companies go through. But actually, I'd allude to what Radhika said. It's a continuous process. Change is every day, every minute. Every morning, when people come to office or go to their work or run their businesses, unless they are aware of what change is like, what kind of situation, in their environment or in their strategy is going to impact them, there's going to be no change. It's a continuous process. So I frankly believe that change is only due to two reasons, and it could be both. Thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
We've seen great research talked about, and so I am not going to go into why change is required. Change is required, and I think it is. I think the time required to change has become short. The organizations that you see getting out of the Fortune 500, the time span is very low. And that's because they many times fail to recognize what is changing outside, whether outside changes are faster than the inside changes. I think we saw one of the quotes, Jack Welch. But I would like to say that when we took over, I was part of the Tata Power Delhi distribution now, but NDPL earlier. The employee base even today remains 2/3 of the DVB employees. And they have changed. How have they changed is one area where I think, just one example, the effectiveness of a particular listening to your consumer. In the call center, we had a very important area where we said ethics and other things should be the change agent in the organization. So every evening, our call center, when it was free, would ask where our people had gone to do repair work, some 4 questions. First was, did he know his job? Second was he polite? Third was, did he carry the proper tools? And fourth was, did you give chai pani? Now, if that question was yes, there was a red that would come to me next day morning, and there would be his boss and others would face it. And we would move them out. Of course, this had to undergo change because one of them said that I was given chai pani, but I never asked for it. So we changed the question to, did he ask for chai pani? So I'm just telling you, every data, every item, every small detailing that you need to go into needs change, and there is no denying. And the second example is that we had a program where all senior people went to the call center and listened to the complaint calls themselves. That gave us an idea of what the whole idea was. So reaching out to your consumer and touching the last point so that you could really know what required to be changed in your organization. Thank you.
The sector that I come from, education, I think changes, I won't use the word either don't happen, but if they happen very slowly. And especially in the kind of organization that I come from and I am, there's a huge sense of complacency that the system suffers from because in many ways you are in a supplier's market, you have a credibility, you have built a brand which is either you have inherited or you have contributed to its glory. So in our kind of organizations, I think change has to be consciously created. because academics find it difficult to accept change as it comes, and there's always this tendency to defend where you are and who you are. But today, the rate at which things are happening, even in academics, I think in the last 10, 15 years, all of us have not only woken up, but have done things. The speed at which we have moved in the last few years, I think the IIM system did not move for 30 years. For instance, I've been a student of IIM Ahmedabad, and IIM Ahmedabad did not increase the number of students they took for 22 long years. It was sitting at 3 sections, about 160, 170, and then suddenly things started changing, and between 2006 and today, the strength itself has more than doubled. So I think issue is not how change is happening, how much it is happening. The point is that, like we say, what's going to happen in future? If you look around, future is already happening in some part of the world. So if we can always foresee what changes are likely to come. Of course, some disruptive changes we may not be able to predict.
Great, so that's a great point, that to predict future, the future is already happening somewhere, and being globally alive could be one way of actually being ahead of the curve. We already have clearly, why change is important, that's established. And so what I'd like to ask you, Dr. Balyan, is can you share a successful recent transformation change that your organization has gone through, and what has leaders in organization done to make it successful?
I'll just like to make a point before I share this, one of the major initiatives that was taken. The question is now the rate of change, actually. And the technology, the aspiration, the affluence, word over, is making it happen so rapidly that when we used to say that we have to race for competition, actually today we have to race to remain in the race, actually. Otherwise we are left behind. So that's the kind of compulsion that has come in. So we should recognize that we need to be racing to remain in contention, otherwise companies just fall back and do that. Now, when I joined ONGC, I spent about 34 years in ONGC, joined in 76. It was a very sleepy government organization. In fact, for a couple of months, I was not really sure whether I have made the right decision to really join ONGC or not. The office used to open around 11 o'clock, and I had to ask for a key. Please give me key. I'll clean this thing. I'll come early. From that to 2010, when I left, actually, 3 years back, I left that company. We were taking pride in calling it that ONGC is a PSU MNC now. And this has happened only because we had tremendous leadership in the organization right from the beginning. And there have been as many as 10 major initiative change transformation processes that were actually taken up on that. There are many of them, but the one which I was very closely associated was what we called as corporate rejuvenation campaign. And I must point out that we took up this nomenclature as campaign because we felt that change looks like to be from A to B, or a transformation from here to here looks like to be a kind of a destination, was called. But we had that connotation, so we called it corporate rejuvenation campaign. And the essential elements were that we should have the right person for the right job with accountability, carve out those activities which are of service in nature. Move from the functional kind of working to task-related and task-oriented jobs on that. And we created a kind of a virtual corporate that even at a office somewhere in Gujarat, the head of that office actually functions as a CEO. So he gets a kind of feel and starts operating in a different environment. This was a process which started with a lot of debate from all lowest level of the executive to the top management. And it took more than a year, even when we had the blueprint ready. We did a pilot project first and got that confidence that now we can roll it out. And then took just one decision that we roll it out all over this thing. Today, ONGC is working, and I think the efficiency parameters, if you see, accountability, you see, so in terms of benchmarking now with other, I think they have moved ahead quite a bit on that.
Great, sir.
You asked this first question that whether it is happening now. I think it was, as Preeti also talked about, it has been there, but I think relative focus and maybe the kind of cost is very high if you don't get along now. Perhaps cost was not that high earlier, 20 years back, but there was change required, obviously. Also, when we look at this globalization perspective, you talked about this wireless incident, and you are now connected to the global world, literally. That will have an impact on business environment. Typically, we also see in our experience that customers have changed. That means market is getting restructured. And if you look at globally, maybe the economy, when we used to see America, and then Japan, now is getting restructured. It can be China and India 20, 30 years down the line. So there is this global restructuring taking place. So there will be change. And to a great extent, maybe the sheer definition of competitive edge of an organization from core competencies, product, technology, features, PowerPoint, when we look at all those kinds of things, shifting to people-related intangibles, speed, responsiveness, capability, commitment. A competitor from us can copy our technology, what we do in a car, but cannot copy the culture of Maruti, because that's where responsiveness comes in. That's where passion comes in. So this is also bringing in change. In our case, recent experience, when we see last 8 months, auto industry, unfortunately, is going down negative growth lane. -8%, -7%, -6% compared to 10%, 15%, 20% growth. Now, how do we do? We are not selling 5,000 a month, we do 100,000 a month. How do we readjust? So there was this quick reaction was required last 8 months. So from volume focus, we suddenly shifted to cost of ownership focus. Entire India strategy had to undergo a big change. And we also looked at new car sales going down, pre-owned cars we should bring in. It worked. We looked at urban loans and EMI and interest rate, kind of difference between the finance ministry and the RBI was not letting the EMI come down. So we really pushed rural sales. Very quick change in strategy. We are still profitable, better than last year, in spite of lower volumes and lower business opportunities and economic slowdown. That's the latest. Company has reinvented itself, and there's perhaps somewhere a learning there for the top leadership to change.
With that, I come to an end of this panel discussion, which I was facilitating, and a few things that, in summary, I'd like to share. I think four things we, talked about change, the nature of change. Question is not change, but speed of change. That was one thing that we said, and therefore there is a race to remain in contention. We have to be cognizant of that. Future is already happening somewhere, and therefore very, very important to be globally aware. So that's the second point about change. Change is all about people, and it is tough. So that's the third point that we talked about, change. And cost of not changing is very high. So those are four things that we discussed when it came to change and aspects of change. So with that, I come to a close. I cannot describe how delighted and honored I am to be with 180 years of experience in this, on this dais, and some terrific leadership.